This is Democracy Watch. Mark, something especially surprising was posted by Donald Trump online that I definitely didn't anticipate seeing. He took to Truth Social, writing, "The Democrats are fighting hard to get rid of the popular vote in future elections. They want all future presidential elections to be based exclusively on the electoral college." So not exactly the position that I think you or I expected Donald Trump to take, which is one that is, I guess, hostile to the electoral college, which of course Republicans have relied on for far more elections than not to win their races. So do you think that there is some hope here that because Donald Trump won the popular vote in this past election cycle, that Republicans could change their position as far as the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is concerned?
I don't think so. I wish so. I mean, hey, Donald, if you really want to do away with the Electoral College, tell the Republican Party to support the National Popular Vote Compact. That would be the way in which you'd ensure that the popular vote controlled for president. The fact is there's two lessons here, Brian, that I think we have to take away. The first is that Donald Trump doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. And of course, the Republican Party is not going to abandon the Electoral College. It is the way in which they have a built-in advantage. Yes, it is true that Donald Trump won a plurality, not a majority, but a plurality of the vote this time, and won the Electoral College. But the circumstances under which one party wins the Electoral College and the other wins the popular vote, that is really saved only for the Republicans, right, in recent times. So that happened in 2000 with Al Gore. It happened in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. It almost happened in 2020 with Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden won by 7 million votes and won narrowly the Electoral College. So Republicans are not giving up that advantage. And that's kind of lesson one. But here's the second lesson. Brian, you're talking about this and I'm talking about this because the president-elect said this. Like, he wrote this and posted it publicly. Where the hell is the mainstream media? Where are what they treat him like he is a 3-year-old child. And when he says something, when he announces this as a policy, rather than engaging it in the way you just did and saying, hey, I wonder if this actually reflects a change in his view, they ignore it because they assume he's just like spouting off and it doesn't matter. And it is emblematic of an advantage they give him that they don't give to Democrats. Right. He gets to just say things and then not have them be treated seriously, even though he's the president-elect.
Right. It's just baked into the cake that Donald Trump is going, that you only have to pay so much attention to what Donald Trump says, and the crazy never applies. We don't have to report on it anymore. But if a Democrat misplaces a modifier in a sentence, then it's going to make national news.
I mean, could you imagine what we would be dealing with right now if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris said publicly that I think we should only use the Electoral College and no one should pay attention to the popular vote?
Running around like chickens with their heads cut off at CNN HQ.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Scott Jennings would be looking very seriously into the camera.
Yeah, that's right. There was another update in Florida, I believe, today as we're recording this, that a Democrat had filed a bill in Florida to elect the president based on the popular vote. And I wonder whether you think that that's going to have any resonance with his Republican colleagues, or if this is just a way basically to skirt on by and say, look, Donald Trump benefited from winning the popular vote, and so maybe it's going to be beneficial to Republicans too. Or do you think that this is just yet again one more failed effort by the left to try to move toward a more a one person one vote system?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to succeed. But again, what I'm looking at is not just whether it's going to succeed or not, because it won't, because the Republicans will block it. They control the legislature and they don't want the national popular vote. But again, Brian, I just have to ask the question, when the Republicans block it, how many of the legacy outlets will call the speaker's office or the state or DeSantis's office and say, hey, why are you blocking this? I mean, right. Donald Trump said he wanted this, but they won't do that because they just assume Donald Trump was like left unattended with a fork near an outlet.
Yeah. No, you're 100% spot on here, in terms of the fact that this is emblematic of what we're going to see for the next 4 years here. There won't be holding anybody to account, because now the two sides are held to a different standard, and we see that on full display in the coverage. Which, by the way, is why so many people are losing faith in legacy media, and why you've been so successful at Democracy Docket in terms of bringing an audience in. So for those who are watching right now, to be part of what has been explosive growth in the news outlet that you run, that you founded to focus on everything voting and elections. I'll put the link to Democracy Docket right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Marc, can you give an update in terms of where the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact stands as of right now, and what states would still have to do in terms of actually getting it to that 270 electoral vote threshold for it to finally come into effect?
Right. So you need to first understand that for the National Popular Vote Compact to take effect, a majority of electoral votes need to be committed to it. So what does that mean? That means that states, on a state-by-state basis, have to adopt a law that says when there are more than 270 electoral votes committed to this endeavor, we will have our electors pledged to whomever wins the popular vote. But until that day, we will continue to use the system we have. So as of today, 17 states plus the District of Columbia have joined the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. But the thing is, that only gets to 209 electoral votes. So none of those states' electors are actually being pledged to the popular vote now, because they're not at 270. So we're going to need additional states to join in order to get to over 270. There are a handful of low-hanging fruit states that might join because they have strong Democratic presence, but it's not going to happen unless we start to see some Republican-controlled states, which is why this Florida news is so important. Because if, in fact, the Florida Republicans, who are willing to do whatever Donald Trump says normally, are held to do the thing that he said here, then Florida would be a big step towards the National Popular Vote Compact, which is why it's important news to follow, and the reason why the legacy media should be holding their feet to the fire.
In theory, the same path to victory that is still very much gettable, even though it didn't go our way in this election cycle, it's still a very gettable path to victory that includes Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Those states have not yet signed on to the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Neither has New Hampshire or Virginia or North Carolina. In theory, those states could sign on. Those are still gettable states for Democrats. Those are states that Democrats have won within the last 2 election cycles here. A lot of those states saw Democrats win Senate seats, for example. So what is your message to these states who haven't yet passed legislation that would compel them to join the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact?
Yeah, I think the message is the moment you have a Democratic trifecta, pass the bill. Like, don't wait. Don't put it off. Don't think like you'll wait for the next session. Pass it immediately. Because, we had a circumstance in Nevada where that was the case, but it's not currently. We had that circumstance very recently in Michigan. And it may be that we'll get that opportunity again in those states as well as in Arizona and Virginia, right? Virginia's got a gubernatorial election in 2025. So there are opportunities. My point is that Democrats need to seize them when they have them. And like I said, Republicans, when they have in closely divided places, this ought to be a campaign issue. Like, this ought to be something that Republicans are held to account for, not as, Donald Trump said something silly, but as Donald Trump said that he supports this and Democrats support it. Why don't you support it?
Right. And by the way, we're also talking about re-enfranchising millions of Republican voters in states like California, where it doesn't matter. It's not like this wouldn't be it's not like this wouldn't have only beneficial impacts for Democrats. There are a lot of people across the country who feel disenfranchised by virtue of them living in solidly red or solidly blue states. And so if you want to make this a situation where people in both parties feel more hopeful about the political process, this is exactly the way to do that. But again, to your earlier point, you have been relentless in terms of beating the drum about holding these people to account for what they actually say. So again, for those who are watching, if you want to support the work that Marc does, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.